He was essentially packaging up body bags. It's called clean room film is the industry. About 5 or 6 weeks in, and things went dark. I kept reaching out. The buyers were curious what was happening. And it took about, I guess, 8 days. And the son texted me and said my dad passed away. While not funny, ironic as heck in the middle of a diligent scenario like
Was he in a body bag?
he would have had to have been shipped to the manufacturer for that to happen.
I mean, it's obviously a sad story, but you're in the middle of selling a business that is described to you in one way and actually is produced another. You have a little bit of contention between the key employee who is the son of the seller. And then in the middle of trying to wrap up a deal, the owner dies. So then what did you do? Welcome back to another episode of IAG's War Room. In the trenches, M&A stories where M&A experts talk about how they fought real-world battles of selling businesses, how they ultimately won and closed the deal, or as we like to say, won the war. I'm Joe Lieberman, Senior Managing Director of IAG. Our guest today is Shane Hammond, Senior M&A Advisor of IAG. Today's segment is called Body Bags. It's probably the kind of bags you're thinking of, and it's a good one. So let's go to war. Shane, tell us about your career path and how you arrived at M&A as a career.
It was an interesting journey for me. I was always in corporate America. I worked for a public company. We took it public, ultimately sold it, and that was my sort of second venture in M&A. It was a lot of fun getting that thing done.
What was that company that you sold?
TRX. It was a transaction company in the travel space for hotel, car rental, airlines. We did a lot of data production, analytics, and operational businesses in India. We had a lot of people, a lot of work. After we sold the company, I ended up with a bunch of my friends and their companies asking me to help. They were asking me to either help them improve their margins or, in a couple cases, sell the business. And I was like, I've done this a couple of times, and I helped them. And the next thing you know, I'm working with IAG, and that was 11 years ago.
Here you are today, specializing in helping companies and founders really extract their wealth and transition their legacy.
In some cases, it's improve their business, get them ready to go to market. They're not always ready. It may not be at the margins and the profitability or the size they want to be.
They may have a particular number in mind that they're trying to hit for their lifestyle, or they have a bias, as I call it, this expectation bias about what a company's worth. And we find out we can't hit that target. So they have a choice. And one of those is to improve the business metrics and get it ready to hit the number that they really are after. So today's title is called Body Bags. And it is literally the body bags that you put human remains into. Why don't you set up the story and explain what happened?
We had a gentleman reach out. He was interested in selling his company. I met with him at his ranch house, and we didn't get into the business for about an hour. We talked mostly about how much property he owned and how much money he had in the bank, which was in the millions, and how much he thought his company was worth, which I obviously didn't have any idea at that point. Hadn't seen any financials or really anything. He described the entire business. We hit it off great. I said, well, we're going to need to get a third-party valuation because we need this to be a certified, accredited number that we can work with and make sure it's bankable. He said, sounds great to me.
Why would we not do it ourselves, this valuation?
If you're off doing valuations, you're going to try to make the number be what you want it to be. We need an independent, disinterested party to do it and have it certified so that we know it's bankable. You can take it to court. You could take it to the bank. But if we were to do it, it'd be a little biased.
He could have said, hey, I want 17 million for the business. And if you really want the business, you would say, okay, I think we can do that. Whereas an independent valuation will come back without emotion and tell us what they think it's worth on the market.
He totally understood. He went and brought a bag of cash out of his room. And I said, I don't need that. I'm not taking any of your cash. We'll figure out, this later. So we ended up hooking him up with one of our partners. They did the third-party certified valuation. It came back at a number he was pretty happy with. And we're all good. It looked perfectly fine to me. I just was at the gentleman's house as he described his company. We take it to market. And it turns out everything is pretty much incorrect and wildly inaccurate.
Why was that?
Well, turns out he was really a VAR, more of a value-added reseller, not at all the manufacturer. But the sim showed images, at least a dozen images of this massive factory, 20 plus thousand square feet, with all this equipment to produce clean room film bags. And I was thinking to myself, well, he didn't really see that facility anywhere. He didn't mention that he had a place.
Mhm.
And so I immediately was like, I guess I just missed it. And hey, looks like a great company. It should sell quickly. And within a week, we had 100 interests. The next thing you know, people are asking a lot of important questions about the business. And I'm learning on the fly, kind of like changing the tires on a flying airplane, that none of that was accurate. He did not have a facility, he did not have equipment, and he did no manufacturing. He was a reseller. Still a great little business. The market and everyone that read the sim was wildly confused.
He basically supplied this information to us and the valuation team, knowing that he was not the manufacturer.
Correct. And he'd been doing it for 40 years. So all of his customers, they all thought he was the manufacturer. All the goods, the bags, are sent in the company branded boxes and labeling. It's got a certificate inside of it that says it's 100% guaranteed clean room produced. And it all looks like it was his company to everyone involved. Turns out, not the case. He had himself and his son and no equipment and no manufacturing capability whatsoever.
So when you're explaining this to the interested buyers, you're finding this out along the way in real time as well, and
Exactly.
having to
Yeah.
recover to explain why it's not exactly the way it appears.
Correct. I ended up producing a 20 question FAQ just based on the questions I was getting to prove the reality. And I would just send it out with the sim to suggest to them, this is not exactly what it looks like, but here's the reality. And it
Yeah.
worked fine. People got
Yeah.
over it quickly, but
Yeah.
it was an interesting ride there for about 2 months.
How did you get along with the father and the son as you were explaining that we really needed to re-clarify what the business was?
Just an interesting relationship between the two. They seem to be at odds. I found myself sort of being an emotional support for the son. The older gentleman is 78. The son's 50 plus years old, so he's not a kid, but he'd been working for dad for about 10 years. He just assumed, I presume, that dad would give him the company when it came time to retire. Well, the next thing you know, there's an M&A advisor in their home where he worked talking to them about selling their company. His perspective on me was very, very negative because I was doing the things he didn't want done.
You were the bearer of bad news.
Exactly. We've had very few conversations. He would chime in while his dad and I were talking on occasion with some facts, always in a bit of a negative way. Uh, I was like, okay, thank you for the help. I committed to him that when we sold the company, he would have a job because he was critical to the business. So I did everything I could to make him comfortable, but it really never felt like he was very comfortable.
Got it. So then what happened?
Well, we take it to market after we clear up all the bad information. We had a couple hundred interests within a few days, and 6 months later, we had almost 600 interested parties. So I ran an auction. The best companies and the best deals are always derived from auction scenarios. This was one of them. And we set a date certain for people to submit LOIs. We got 5 LOIs above asking price. He essentially let me pick the buyer because I determined that the entity that could take him over more rapidly and guarantee his son a job was this one particular buyer. So we began diligence, which was in its own right extraordinarily challenging because he had no financials, he had no QuickBooks, nothing. He had literally ledgers that I took and hand banged into a spreadsheet, worked with a CPA to have it match tax returns. We're about 5 or 6 weeks in, and things went dark. I didn't hear a word out of Ron or the son. I kept reaching out. The buyers were curious what was happening, and it took about, I guess, 8 days. And the son texted me and said, my dad passed away. He's gone. While not funny, ironic as heck in the middle of a diligence scenario like
Was he in a body bag?
he would have had to have been shipped to the manufacturer for that to happen.
I mean, it's obviously a sad story, but you're in the middle of selling a business. So you've got a situation where you have a business that is described to you in one way and actually is produced another. You got a value-added reseller who is not manufacturing. It's okay, but it would have been better had you known it from the beginning. You have a little bit of contention between the key employee who is the son of the seller. He wasn't that happy with you to be around. And then in the middle of trying to wrap up a deal, the owner dies. So then what did you do?
completely forgot about the business in an attempt to sell it. I wasn't trying to revive the deal. I just reached out to all the potential buyers and explained the situation. And I went into emotional support mode with the son, just reaching out to him about every 6 or 8 days to see how he was doing. And I really didn't hear much back. He was sort of indifferent, not very responsive. And I wrote the whole thing off, kind of gave up on it for a minute.
Mhm.
3 months post-death, the son actually called and he said, I have my affairs in order. We've settled the estate. I'm ready to sell the company. And I was blown away, both that he would reach out to me or anyone that had been involved heretofore, and B, that he actually wanted to sell it, not so much continue to operate like he had been indicating.
You told the previous buyer pool that it was no longer on the market. They went on their merry way, and suddenly, without warning, the new owner, who is the son, tells you he wants to keep going. Let's sell the business.
That's exactly what happened. So we updated the valuation with more recent financials. We corrected all the nonsense related to them being a manufacturer. I'm sure this guy will have $1 million in his pocket within about 30 days.
Have you gone back to the buyers that originally contacted you and ultimately selecting one of those? Are they in the mix right now?
All of them. Yes, every single one. I just reached out, called every one of them, explained the situation, explained the estate being settled, and they're all ready to rock. I suspect we'll have 5 LOIs within a week.
And how long from beginning to end has this story transpired?
It's been 18 months from beginning to what will be the end here in a short month or so.
You met somebody a year and a half ago. You found out that it was a thriving business financially, except that he didn't describe it in a way that matched reality. Not a problem, but you had to recover from that. You working with one individual who didn't really have an interest in selling it. You get to market, you have a lot of interest. Keeping track of more than 40 is a lot of buyers to manage, and kudos to you for being able to sift through hundreds, as you described it. The owner very rudely passes away during the process, and you've got a buyer who is ready to give cash stop in his tracks. You had buyers give you their own LOIs. They give you indications of interest.
We went straight to the LOI phase, and the criteria was all cash, no seller note, and a guarantee that the son would remain employed with an employment contract because he was the key to the business. So those were my terms, our terms, and only the parties that fundamentally agreed to all those things were the ones who got to the final stage.
So you were able to set the minimum conditions. It was all cash. Here is the employment agreement and other terms. And in order to be accepted as a viable buyer, those were the conditions they met when they submitted those LOIs.
That's right. And if they didn't, we just did not engage them any further. Turns out in this revamp we're going through, that's the same 6 that I've reached out to and that will be bidding again shortly.
Okay. We're going to hope that everybody stays alive during this process and you actually don't have to use any of the products that the company manufactures.
I won't be donating organs anytime soon, I hope, and I certainly don't want to end up in a body bag. So I think we're going to be okay.
Well, good luck to you. I'm sure it's going to transition very well.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.